Okay, our official welcome to the CINC Community Office Hours webinar. If you've never been to Office Hours, this is actually our first one back after a hiatus that went on a little longer than we intended. But Office Hours is really different than all of our other webinars in that it's a topic that rotates every time. So this topic today, you will not see again unless we host our guests from today again in the future. But this is hosted monthly on a Wednesday, once a month, with a rotating topic, and we'll introduce our topic for next month a little later in the webinar. But today we are very lucky to have Dan Lott and Harry Kierbo with us from CINC's client marketing team. But before I introduce them and get into our topic, I need to introduce my co-host, Mike Davis. Mike is here to answer anything in the chat that you have. It may be that he can provide a link or an answer to you right there in the chat. If he thinks that it's a better topic to pitch to the guests or to me, he'll do that and we'll talk about it live. So please feel free to put anything in the chat, and I may need to ask Mike some questions too occasionally. So hopefully we'll get to hear from him. So say hi, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
All right, now let's get into why you all are actually here. It's not for me and Mike's faces, even though we love seeing yours and hope that you love seeing ours. It is to talk to Dan and Harry about how to maximize your ad spend. So I want to do a quick introduction, but first, look at my cool little, look at them wiggling for you.
Oh.
We've got Dan and Harry with us. Dan's official title is VP of Client Marketing, but if you will give us a kind of synopsis on your history, Dan, and you know your time with CINC.
Well, I have been with CINC for a very long time. I've pretty much from the beginning, not from the beginning, but close to it. I started up the lead generation department 9 years ago. So I've seen it all. So yeah, so I put it all together, and I'm in charge of the team. That's about it.
So you have a lot of expertise in overall lead generation. Harry's kind of got a little bit of a niche, but you're like jack of all trades when it comes to lead gen.
Yeah, I would say so.
You better be.
I know it all. I've seen it all in all these years. Yes, but I know that I don't know as much, or pretty much anything about social. So that's why Harry's around too.
Exactly, and that's why we have Harry as our other guest for today. Harry, also known as Hot Sauce around the CINC office, is our Senior Director of Paid Social Media Marketing. So break that down for us, Harry. What's your role at CINC? How long have you been with us?
So what, a little bit over 5 years now. You know, still we've rolled all my anniversary parties into one. So the 6-year anniversary is going to be amazing.
Wow.
Everybody's invited. Everyone's invited, you know, assuming we can gather. Yeah. I'll send the Zoom link at least. But yeah, so I'm the Senior Director of Paid Social Media Marketing, just because I really love really long titles. And I oversee the team that manages all the ad spend on the social side for clients. So that's primarily going to be on Facebook and Instagram, buyer, seller, recruit, dynamic ads, you know, whatever we can do that drives good leads for our clients. We're always looking into it, always testing it. So that's my primary focus, get to lead that team and, you know, work to solve those challenges every day, which is awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. We're going to have a conversation today. I mentioned that this webinar is a little different than our others. We're not going to be in a platform looking at how to work leads. We're going to just be having a conversation. You can kind of think of this as a podcast with webcams. So I'm going to be pitching some questions that I've prepared to these guys. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, if you've got questions, throw them in the chat and Mike will pitch those to us too. So first I wanted to touch on CINC's goal. Really your team's goal is to generate the highest quality leads in your preferred areas for the least amount of money. So that's kind of like your team's mission statement, right? Tell me a little bit about, I know you can't share the proprietary stuff with us, but tell me a little bit about how you guys go about this.
Well, I just want to kind of focus on this goal here for a second. And I always, whenever I do a webinar, and if you've already heard me go on the spiel, I apologize. But the most important thing, so we are able to we are driven to get the highest quality leads in your preferred areas for the least amount of money. So that's the overall metric we look at is called the cost per lead. But we need help on the other side, the quality of leads and the kind of the preferred areas, especially. So as a CINC client, if you are not, if you're getting a whole bunch of leads and the cost per lead is really great, that's good. But if they are not where you want them to be, if they are not the type of leads you want them to be, reach out to your account manager. And if you already have a relationship with your ad manager, reach out to your ad manager, because you may not know it, but you have a dedicated account manager or a advertising manager who oversees your account. So like there's a lot of things we can easily do to change your accounts. So like if you just added a new agent and they are in an area where you're not currently getting leads, we can add that area, or vice versa. If you have an agent who went away, we can turn off those areas. And if you're getting a lot of condo leads and you don't want condo leads, we can turn off your condo leads. So or if you want condo leads, we can do the vice versa. Anyway, so that's always my takeaway, because it's always frustrating to everybody when we think your account's doing great and then we find out that we're not delivering what you're looking for. So
yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of, is that we do have a large team of ad managers that work with Dan and Harry. And they are kind of experts in an area of the country. So we have a map where the United States and Canada are split. And so we can look at trends across regions. So, when Dan's talking about ad managers, that's exactly what he's saying. You can actually have a conversation with that person who is an expert in your area, so they can make, personalized recommendations, especially we've got people who oversee just Google leads or then just Facebook leads. So, regardless of what type of lead you're running or what type of lead you're looking for, you've got somebody at CINC that can kind of give you the nitty gritty in terms of what will work best for your area. It's not just a blanket, recommendation for everyone, right, Harry?
No, we just give one blanket recommendation. That's it. No, but no, obviously I'm kidding. But I do think that's a really important point. Is we have actual people who this is all we do day in and day out. Over 100 years of experience on the team amongst us. And a lot of our competitors have gone the more automated route. I think there is a big difference when you've got, we've got the automation, we've got the tools to help us, but we've also got, an actual person who is there, and that's, this is all we do all day, every day, 5 days a week, most weeks, some days more. So, we see a lot of stuff. We love solving problems, and yeah, I think that's a big advantage of CINC that I'm not sure that everybody knows. You've got someone that you can speak to, bounce ideas off of, if you need to. And going back to what Dan said too, that feedback loop is especially important on the Facebook and Instagram side, because the targeting that we do on that side, I know we'll get into these differences later, but one of the big differences between search engine and social marketing is the way that the targeting is done. So in social, in a nutshell, we're actually pushing ads out to people based on where they are and what their demographic profile looks like. So if you have a specific loan type that a lender that you work with really wants to push, or a listing that you want to promote, or I saw, I hope I'm not stepping on your toes, Mike, but I saw Leslie's question pop up about ads in languages other than English. We can do that with Facebook. So, we've got a lot of targeting that we can play with there. So, I mean, if you have, I always tell people, if you've got someone on the phone and they want to do something that sounds crazy, make sure you send it to us, because we can do a lot of that with the Facebook ad targeting. So that feedback loop is very important, and utilizing our team is something we would definitely recommend you to do as a CINC client.
Because even if there's a request that you think is dumb, like a lot of times, like literally like in Slack, something will come into Harry and it's like, well, we can't like we can't do it on Google, but like, oh yeah, like Harry can kind of like do some weird targeting or something like that, so we can get you, if not exactly what you're looking for, but something pretty
as close as
pretty close to it, something that you would not think we would be capable of doing. We can do. And then just going back to what Harry said on, you know, we have 14 people in our department whose job it is to get you the, you know, the highest quality leads in your preferred area, you know, for the least amount of money. And as you know, they're regionally focused, and one of the examples we always use is Calabasas, California, which I think is where the Kardashians are. Maybe a Bieber might be there or something. Sure,
Biebs used to be there. I think he's gone now.
But the cost per lead there is really, really, really cheap. But you also have to take into consideration that the quality of leads isn't there, because they're all people really into the Kardashians who have Googled it and then entered their information. So you have to figure out, like, well, the next town over has a twice as high cost per lead. So why is that? So, but we know that, and we can talk to you about that, and so that you know, maximize what you're looking for in terms of your lead flow.
Yeah, and I think that's a good distinction to make, is it's all, and that's kind of the goal today, is how can we maximize your ad spend? You're never going to let someone make an uninformed advertising decision. We don't want to just, you know, take more money and produce a subpar lead. It's going to be, well, we can't quite do that. So you'll always give, you know, recommendations on how we can make the most of the spend that people are having, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and that's an important part too, you know, that came from the founder of CINC, is, you know, we consider ourselves to be a fiduciary when it comes to, and I always say this in webinars because it's the only time I get to say that I'm a fiduciary. It makes me sound, you know, like smart. I feel important.
Very important.
You know, like I've got dress shoes on. But but you know, we do take that very seriously. You know, we do have clients that want to do things that just don't make sense for whatever reason, and you know, that's a conversation that we have frequently as well, is, you know, hey, based on, you know, what you're wanting to do, like, it probably doesn't make sense, or, you know, maybe I know you want to spend this much, but to do this type of campaign based on the audience, we would actually say you spend less. Or, you know, if your campaign is struggling, reducing budget sometimes may help. So those are conversations that we have. We take that very seriously, that role as a fiduciary, because, you know, when you guys make money, we make more money, and it's a beautiful cycle. But we don't want to just, you know, take your money and
stewards of the budget.
Right. Yes.
I love it.
That's what I was getting to eventually.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to wrap up your long-winded answers.
Yes, I was winding my way there.
I love it. That's when we're a good team. So I want to talk now about, since we are, you know, still pretty early in the first quarter here, or maybe about halfway through, 2020 versus this year, because CINC as a whole had a really great year in 2020 in terms of historic low cost per lead across a lot of almost all the kind of ad little pockets that we think of. So talk to me a little bit about how ads performed last year and why they did so well, and how we can kind of see that inform the rest of this year.
Well, I'll take it first, Harry. This is a chart for Facebook, but what is happened in Facebook happened in everything. Every type of ads that we have that we run did better in 2020 versus 2019. That's January. Okay, January. Anyway, yeah, what I said made sense. So we did a lot better last year than we did in 2019. And in January, all of our ads did better this January than last January. So we are trending in the right direction. And the reason we had record numbers, every one of our product types had record cost per lead. We're rocking and rolling. We're doing great. And the reasons are, well, on the bad side, it's the COVID, which forced people to stay at home, caused the search traffic to increase dramatically, which drove down the cost per click, and when you drive down the cost per click, then that drives down the cost per lead. So that is one of the big things, but it's not the only thing by far. And we were, even before it happened, we were on pace for a record 2020, and then that happened and just accelerated it. CINC wise, we've invested a lot in technology. It's like we've already said we had the 14 people working on accounts, but we've also invested a lot on technology so that once we're able to roll out improvements at scale and do testing at scale, which other people aren't able to do it because they don't have access to the same amount of data as we do. So so just the emphasis on data, and then having a tech team that there's a lot of I'm not gonna go to there's a lot of like kind of back end.
Don't have to get into the minutia for sure.
It's not very. It's extremely exciting to people in the department, but for you guys, it's not. But we made some fundamental changes to how we ran the advertising, and that was very successful. And so it was successful last year, and it's also, we're doing better this year than last year. So I think it's gonna continue.
So the trend looks like it's gonna continue to be a great year, cost per lead wise.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, another aspect of that too is the decreased competition that came about as a result of COVID, especially on the social side. If you're a brick and mortar business that's relying on traffic coming into your store, once March of 2020 hits, April of 2020 hits, you're probably reducing your budget if you're not pulling it all together. Same was true for a lot of really large brands. And I mean, most of the time we're competing for similar people in these auctions, people with income, that are looking to purchase whatever it may be, in our case, a house. So not only more people being online, but also just less people bidding in those auctions made a huge impact on the cost per lead on the social side. And that's what, if you're looking at this chart, the CPM stands for cost per milli. So that's the average cost to show an ad to 1,000 people on Facebook. So 1,000 impressions. So that to me shows that drop in there's more people in the audience as a whole, and there's less people trying to show ads to those people. So, there's a drop off of 20% in how much it costs to show the ad to 1,000 people. If cost per click stays relatively the same, you're just going to get more clicks for that same budget, which is why we saw the drop in cost per click. And then if conversion rate holds, which it did, you'll see a drop in cost per lead. So, that's a big part of it too, is the decrease in competition. And we are seeing those same trends continuing into this year. January's been really strong, and February's strong as well.
Awesome. And I'll make a quick distinction, because when we talk about conversion with agents, that's a different definition than your definition of conversion. So conversion for the ad world is someone turning into a lead. So they clicked on an ad, did they convert into a lead or not? Whereas I know with agents, conversion is, did I convert them into a client? Did I have a sale? So I just like to make that clarification, so we don't get anyone saying, I'm going to have a 70% conversion rate. They're a little different, but that's the distinction there. So in terms of 2021, do you think, if we can predict that the cost per lead will continue to stay fairly low, are there any other predictions that you see? I know we can't predict the future, so I'm not saying to put it in writing and sign it. But as things do begin to reopen, more of the population gets vaccinated, do we think that there's the potential that it may return to kind of pre-COVID times, or what's the general thought there?
Yeah, I don't know.
You just kind of have
that's
to
a great
see.
question. No, I assume that there will be, like, at least from our perspective, I think traffic the search traffic will go down a little bit, but
Mhm.
we have made improvements to our system that will offset any sort of decline in search traffic. But even so, there's like CINC, we're sticking around in our houses for forever, pretty much. Like even when, come fall or whatever, we're still going to be sitting around. And I know Harry especially likes to look at houses online, so that's when he's
Love it.
around. So, so there's going to be a lot more people who are not working in an office and are going to be working in their house. So
Right.
it's going to continue. It's not going to be, the search traffic is going to be higher than it was before COVID, but not as high as it was at the peak of COVID.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, well, another aspect of that too is the market. Like the market right now is, you've got houses selling in a day, multiple offers coming in on houses. So you've got a lot of buyers that are out there constantly looking, right? So I mean, COVID is a huge part of this that we've seen since, oh my God, almost a year now. That's a huge part of the change in performance. But there are external factors too, like that market. That market is also influenced by COVID. But I mean, it's hard to predict. But I agree with what you said, Dan. I expect at some point that we will see these record lows start to tick back up. But I think that I mean, we're constantly investing in the
We're
ads that we
prepared to
do and
handle
the
it.
strategies. Yeah, right. So I think, I think we'll be okay.
Perfect. Great answer, guys. Let's talk a little bit about just the types of advertising that CINC offers. So I think a lot of people, when they first launch with CINC, they start with Google buyers, but we do offer Google sellers and we do recruit ads. So there's lots of different things that we can do, right? So let's talk about kind of the main difference between advertising on Google versus advertising on social.
So when a client launches, we suggest that, depending on like what your budget is and things like that, but we suggest that you do a combination of Google and Facebook and Listcast, which is our proprietary remarketing
And we'll talk about that too in a moment.
advertising program, which relies on both Google and Facebook. And the reason is it's just good to diversify in general. And I'm not sure if one of the slides coming up is, but it shows that there's one of the slides that we've done. It shows that almost every market has the cost per lead is lower on Facebook than it is on Google, but it's like 2/3 of them are. So there's around 1/3 of them, it does better on Google than on Facebook. So it just depends on what city you're in. And then it also depends on, what on your site, you never know what's going to work for you. And
so basically $1,000 in one city, the breakdown between Google and Facebook might need to be a little different than $1,000 in another city where the cost per lead, on Google is better, for example.
Exactly. And also there's different types of leads, and it's, you might like one type of lead better than the other type of lead. You might have more success with it. And if you don't try both of them, you're not going to know that you like Facebook better than Google. But if one of the benefits of search rather than social is that somebody is expressly searching for, a house online on Google. Somebody has typed in, homes for sale in Reno or whatever it is. And so they are expressly looking for a house, whereas on Facebook, you're looking at your news feed and you see a picture of a house and you're like, that's a cool looking house. I'm going to click on it and register. So Google, it's somebody is expressly searching, and it might be a shorter term interest in that somebody needs to find a house in the next 3 months. So they will register and try to buy a house, whereas Facebook might be a longer term relationship. But generally the cost per lead on Facebook is lower. And one other really good thing about Facebook is that the data quality is better because the information is Facebook, I forget the term. I use a bad term for it, but it pulls it or whatever from the person's back from their account information, so that
Facebook profile, yeah.
Facebook profile, that's what it's called.
Yeah, a lot
So
of people have
it's
their
100%
real
accurate.
Facebook or their real, phone number in Facebook because it helps them recover an account. For example, if they got locked out, or a lot of people have a good email on there because it's actually an account they use. So that's the difference there between pulling information from someone's profile on Facebook versus them having to type it in if they come from Google.
Yeah,
exactly.
and I mean and I at least look at it as kind of two arms of a body. I don't know what has two arms. It's two arms of something. Of when we look at a campaign, like Dan said, right? Like if you need to go and buy something, like if I'm gonna buy a car, I just bought a car recently. I didn't go to Facebook and just scroll down my news feed just hoping for an ad to pop up, right? Like I went to Google and I did a search, and that makes sense. When we set up a campaign, we're thinking about, we want you to get as many kind of now wins as you can, which is why we tell people to put the majority of budget on the search side, because those are those more active buyers. But we also want to build your pipeline for future, because the CINC system is so great at nurturing those leads. Most of those pipeline leads are probably going to come from the social side, because you are catching them. They don't know about you. They don't know about your service at this point. You're catching them. They're going in and searching. We do still see some now buyers come through. I mean, they're the same people that are on Google or on Facebook. But just in general, our expectation would be that the leads from social are going to be further out because of that proactive targeting. And that's another reason that we recommend the remarketing products that we do as well, to help to nurture those leads, that do register. Maybe they're a few months out. We want to keep them engaged on that client site and nurture them and provide value to them. So when they are ready to buy, our client is the one that they reach out to.
Perfect segue.
Oh,
It's almost like,
oh, snap.
Let's talk about Listcast and remarketing. Harry, take it away on Listcast. I'm sure we've got some people listening in that already use it, maybe some that don't. So give us the breakdown.
Okay, so Listcast is our proprietary property remarketing service. Basically, what it does is there's two aims to a Listcast campaign. So the first aim is getting people that hit the site and don't register to come back. So on that Google ad side, on that Facebook ad side for buyers, our conversion rate is anywhere from 10 to 20%, which is really good. I mean, it's well above the industry average. But that means that you've got 80 to 90% of your people that hit the site. When we ask for their contact information, they aren't ready to give that to you yet, so they leave, right? And you pay for that click, you pay for that impression. So one of the campaigns within Listcast is going to target those people specifically. It's going to take whatever home they were looking at on the site prior to the registration form popping up, and then when they go back to Facebook, Instagram, they're in their news feed, they're going to see an ad that's automatically generated with properties that are similar to that one that they were looking at. And the goal of that is to, bring them back, get them to sign up on maybe that second or third visit. It'll keep them in the audience for on that side. We do 30 days usually on average, so they would be eligible to see those ads for 30 days unless they come back, and then that resets it for another 30 days.
They have at
and that's
least
an important
30 days to be enticed to come back to the site, which will hopefully turn into a registration at that point.
Yes, that's right. And then each time they come back, we learn a little bit more, right? So if they search for a home, maybe they're looking in Atlanta, we ask them for their contact information, they bounce, they'll see a more general kind of Atlanta search. If they click back, we're learning, oh, okay, we thought it was Atlanta. Now we know it's 3 beds and 2 baths, around $200,000. So now we've got that additional layer of information. So the recommendations get stronger over time. So that's that's one. I don't want to say arm again, but I will. One arm of the Listcast campaign. The second is one that's aimed specifically at people who do register, because we tend to see that leads, will take some time to convert, usually at least a few months. So the other part of that Listcast campaign targets those people who register specifically, and it shows them ads with relevant properties on Facebook, Instagram, and the Google Display Network. So, wherever they're going, they're seeing properties that are similar to what they're already looking at. And that's one of the things that really makes Listcast stand out, is every single person in the audience is seeing a totally different ad that's automatically generated, um, based on specifically what they're searching for. So it makes it really, really relevant, and it's great at bringing people back to the site and keeping them engaged with you, or our client, as they go through that funnel till they're ready to purchase the home.
So it's not necessarily a lead generator, but it is kind of warming up the leads that you are receiving already.
Well, it actually does generate a lot of leads. That first arm of the campaign, we've got 80 to 90% of your traffic that's hitting your site and leaving. We see a lot of people sign back up on that second or third visit off of those Listcast ads. So it does generate a lot of leads. We actually launch, that's part of our launch recommendation now, is majority Google buyer, some Facebook buyer, and then Listcast as well, to kind of clean up all those loose ends that hit the site and don't register.
Well, and the cost per lead for Listcast was lower than Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really low. It was I think Facebook in January was $2.99, and Listcast, I think
I took
two
some
something.
notes to prepare, and I do see that on, it was $2.99 was the
Look
average.
at that.
Good memory.
Yeah, for Facebook buyer. Yeah.
Whereas just for Google, because I know we already talked about it, that average cost per lead for Google was $3.82, and that was, again, our best one ever.
Which, by the way, is amazing. Like, as we've worked with other vendors, or worked with our partners, I mean, the Google cost per lead from CINC is by far the lowest I've ever seen in the industry. Like, usually if someone is at 2x what CINC is, they're doing very well.
Mhm.
So I mean, that is worth mentioning. I mean, that's an amazing cost per lead.
Mhm. Awesome.
And I don't work on the Google team, so I'm not patting my own back. I am sucking up to my boss, though. Remember this when review comes. Yes. Dan.
So Dan, could you talk to us a little bit about the more traditional remarketing that we do that's not Listcast?
It is, and like, we're almost trying to get away from the term remarketing, just because it's such kind of a vague term. It's more, it's kind of what we do that's not Listcast is branded remarketing. So it's like brand advertising.
So brand awareness, essentially.
It's somebody who has been to your site, or you have imported their information into your site, your sphere of influence. They will see your banner ads all over the internet. And it's a product we've been offering for a few years now. And it's a really good, you're not going to get, it doesn't generate leads. But it's going to, improve your, name recognition, your brand recognition to the people who have been to your site or who you're currently working with. So they'll think you're a lot bigger player because they see your all over the internet. They will see your banner ads in various ways on their phone or on their computer, and it's just a really good way to improve that. So if that's something, like, if you only have a $250 ad budget, I wouldn't really recommend it. First off, I would recommend, if you have an extra, it's a flat $200 fee. That's what it costs. So I would recommend you invest a little bit more on your lead generation. But if you're spending $500 or $1,000 or more than $1,000, I definitely think you should consider it, because it's a really good way. And we don't have any stats on, like, it's caused this many sales, but just anecdotally, we've heard that people like they've called up a lead and said like, oh, I've heard of you, or I know you, I see your ads all over the place. And it's just a good way to augment your lead generation by, improving your name recognition.
Like a digital billboard.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's tough. Like people buy park benches and billboards, and it's really hard to quantify how those work. So this is just another way to, get your name out there, and it's just to the people who know you already too.
Yeah, and so I think it's cool that you mentioned that you can do this with a targeted list. So someone could supply a list to your team to remarket to a certain list. That's also, I think, a good time to talk about recruit ads, because if you do have a list of recruits that you are trying to market to, that's kind of how a more targeted recruit ad works. But we also can do recruit ads without a list to generate some potential new agents to join the team. We won't dive too deep into that just for time's sake, but it is a possibility. So if you want more information about that, I'd reach out to your account manager to discuss remarketing and targeting some recruits as well.
Yeah, I just want to interject for a second. I don't know if Harry wants to talk about recruiting, but yeah, that the thing about being able to upload a list is something on the Google side, especially they just added it a few months ago. And one of the cool things about CINC is that we are able to use it on all accounts. Like if you are a regular guy just starting up their Google account, you can't do it right away. But because we've done some things so that you can do it right away. So I don't know if we have any new clients out there, but we can contact like if you have a database of 5,000 people or something from your old site and then you move it over to CINC, we can upload that list and then start showing the banner ads so that they'll come to your new site. And that's something that you can't get with everybody. So that's a cool, the SOI aspect of the advertising.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that works on the Facebook side too. I mean, that's a really powerful tool within Facebook called custom audiences. And I mean, you can create audiences off of, you need to have an email address and a phone number, or at least one of those for the people that you want to include in the audience. But yeah, I mean, you can also make audiences on Facebook off of people who've watched a video or people who have been on your page or on your Instagram business profile. There's a lot of custom audience stuff that we can do. So, I mean, if anybody has questions about that, definitely reach out to the account manager and that'll find its way to us and we'll give you some guidance there.
Awesome. And then really quickly, I wanted to give a preview for everyone about the beta that you're running for Google My Business, because that's something that a lot of agents have shared with me over the past year or so that's done a lot, to give them a bigger presence on those Google searches. So can you talk a little bit about maybe what's hopefully to come after a successful beta?
Yes. Thanks for that. Yeah, one of the things that also Google made a change, I think it was in August maybe. Before August, to get a Google My Business account, it involved like getting postcards and stuff like that. You have to register and then they would mail you something in the mail and you had to get a code from that postcard and enter it in there. And just over the years, we've always recommended people get a Google My Business account because it's a free way to improve your presence online and maybe get some more leads, but just in general, just have it easier for people to find you. But there's always that hurdle of getting a postcard. The postcard gets lost, and
cumbersome sign up.
Anyway, so they don't sign up. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. And so now we are able to, not immediately. We're gonna take. So we're in a beta now where we're just using people's existing Google My Business accounts, and we're also some of the other people who don't have Google My Business accounts. We are adding them like manually just to kind of work out the kinks to figure out how we can maximize Google My Business accounts. And then if all goes well, if we see it's there's there's a lot of work involved, but we're going to have it so that we can automate the creation of your Google My Business account if you don't already have one. So you don't have to worry about getting a postcard in the mail and things like that. So
That's
it's
awesome.
still in the early stages. There's gonna be a lot of work involved. That's something. So it's not gonna happen next week where we're gonna launch it for everybody, but I think it'll be a good thing. It's just a new add-on service, and this goes to the point that we have a tech team which is willing to invest in the business, and we're like, if we didn't have a tech team to create an API integration with all this fancy stuff and get it going, we couldn't do it. But because we have people who are on staff who can do it, we're able to do it. And so that's why we're going to go ahead, and it's hopefully it'll be something where we you just get some additional leads, and it'll just be a win-win kind of thing, because it's an obvious thing that everybody should have a Google My Business account, but it's kind of tricky to set it up now. We'll just make it easier for you.
I think, yeah, just anywhere you can be found online is beneficial. And I mean, you have to think about it too as like the whole funnel, I mean, radio commercials, remarketing, anything like that. Maybe someone sees it but doesn't sign up on it that first time. Same with the Google My Business page. Just anytime that your business, your name can pop up and generate that awareness for that person, you're walking them down that funnel, even if they don't sign up right then. So yeah, the more places you can be found, the better. And Google My Business is a really exciting new avenue there that we're working through.
Well, before we move on, I want to pitch it to, or throw it over to Mike, I should say, and ask if we've got any questions that make sense for us to go ahead and knock out while with kind of what we've talked about so far.
Absolutely. So I have a couple that tie into, I believe, the Listcast remarketing options here. One of them was asked if that banner that Listcast remarketing uses, will that go away if someone's like actively clears their cache and cookies on their end, or is that something that we can still follow them around with?
I believe clearing cache and cookies would remove you, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, would remove you from a remarketing audience unless you hit the site again. I don't know how often people actually do that. Now on the SOI side, the custom audience upload, that's going to trigger off of your Google Google profile or your Facebook or Instagram profile. So that's going to be a different thing. That one is looking for, like on Facebook and Instagram, is looking for accounts there that have that mobile phone number or have that email address. But I believe if it's just, we're using a cookie or a pixel on the Facebook side for remarketing, if somebody hits your site and clears their cache, I believe that would remove the cookie itself. But again, I don't know. The only time I clear my cache is when the IT department tells me to. Like I don't know how often people actually do that. But I would think that would remove you from the audience if you do.
I know before I started working at CINC, I never did it. And then I learned that it was good to do. So now I do it. So I don't know how often, to echo Harry, I don't know how often that happens, but yeah, if someone does and removes that cookie that allows us to follow them, and they'd have to hit the site again to be able to continue to follow them.
Another question kind of around Listcast remarketing options is Alan is also using a company called AdWorks, and wonder how they differ from AdWorks, and if we have like an option to pull AdWorks leads into the platform, kind of how that works on integrating with CINC.
Yeah, I think AdWorks is more on the branded side. So you're allowed to have the code, I believe, yeah, you're allowed to put the AdWorks code in your dashboard if you'd like to do that. But yeah, they're just that's another provider. I think our ads look better than theirs. I'm pretty sure. I am 100% sure that our ads look better. Our designer does a really good job with the HTML5 ads that look really cool. So
yeah, the movie.
But yeah, you can put it in and you can track your leads and stuff that way.
Yeah, and I saw that question come through. I think it was I'm not sure how AdWorks functions as well, like what landing page they use, but I mean, if you drove the traffic to your CINC site, if they signed up, they would be in the CINC CRM, or there may be some way to bring them in from another bucket through like Zapier or something like that. But the remarketing service that we provide is at least very similar. I don't know that they do the moving ads like Dan mentioned, the HTML5. You guys can check it out at cincremarketing.com if you don't know what I'm talking about. But those look really, really good. And I mean, it's $200 a month flat fee for that. So I don't know about cost on the AdWorks side as well, but I think the yeah, thanks, Mike. I think the remarketing ads that we provide are very similar, if not better.
Awesome.
then
Anything else, Mike?
I have two more that relate to ads run through other third parties like realtor.com or KV Core, but we can push those to the end if that makes sense to do that.
Yeah, I think so, because we only have a couple more kind of pre-planned topics to cover, and then I think we can get into, how we might differ from others. So I'll hit you back up in just a minute, because while we still have ample time, I definitely want to make sure we talk about seller leads, because that has been the word on every agent's lips for the past several months. As you kind of mentioned earlier, homes are selling very quickly. Inventory is very low. It is a real seller's market right now. I know a lot of people who primarily do work buyers are very frustrated because, homes are going in record time for way over asking, and we need more inventory to kind of even level the playing field. And as I think a lot of people who have been with us for a while know, CINC is really buyer focused. But I know, and I wrote down the stat here for seller, that last year we generated the most Google seller leads ever in a year. And we also had the lowest cost per lead, and it was $10.01, which I love that it's very precise. So talk to me a little bit about maybe why seller leads are a little bit more expensive when we look at that average cost per lead, and just how we can help, our clients just, find some more listings, get that inventory up.
Sure. So we do offer seller leads, and there has been a very large increase in the number of folks who are taking us up on that offer of seller leads. It's almost probably over the last year, we might have doubled the amount of people who are using seller leads. And they're a little bit more expensive, and that is just because there's the cost per click and the conversion rate are the two factors of a cost per lead, and the cost per click is just a lot higher for the terms that we use for our seller leads. But the conversion rate is a lot higher. So it's double of what it is on the buyer leads. But so what it is, what's that, Harry?
Add to lead conversion rate.
Yes, Harry.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
So it's, you enter it, it's a home value cost per lead. Somebody enters in their address and answers a couple other questions about like what type of bedroom, things like that, and then that's how the lead is generated. And we have gotten, the cost per lead has gone down a lot. It's at $10, which is the all-time high. We've generated more than ever. And if you're looking for seller leads, you're looking for listings, it's definitely a good way to a good thing to try. We wouldn't, like, if you just want to, it's a good thing to maybe just dabble into it, like put in a couple $100 as opposed to $2,000, because we have found that, like, if some people who take it up to like $5,000, that really affects their cost per lead. So just dip your toe in with a couple $100 or $500 if you have a bigger market. But that's a good thing to do. And and also on the seller leads part, also keep in mind that we don't emphasize this, but on our buyer leads, what is it, like a third of the buyer leads indicate that they also have a house to sell. So that's something to consider too. But if you're interested in seller leads, we offer them, and it's a good product, and then we've had a lot of good success with it recently, especially.
Yeah, and I see the
It's
question
also something
about
we're investing in.
conversion kind of rate for seller leads. And Mike gave a great answer, and that's pretty hard to track because not everyone uses the CINC platform in the same way, and we're not necessarily getting that data reported back to us. So it's hard to say, if you do seller leads, you'll close 4% of them, right? I wish we had a number for that, but we just don't. Just kind of the nature of the business, it's hard to track. But I do know that seller leads tend to be a little bit further out. And that's just typical of kind of the life cycle of someone getting their house ready to sell, or, you know, from the time they, you know, start being interested in evaluation, that may lead them to have, you know, need to do some upkeep, some work, some repairs. And so they can typically be a little further out. And I think that's why it's a really great point to make, that a lot of your buyer leads will also have a house to sell. And so I think that's an untapped kind of mindset of how to get seller leads, is if you do get those buyer leads, a lot of them will have that house to sell. And then you can supplement that with, you know, a CINC seller, pure seller lead.
Another thing that's really interesting on the seller side. Yeah, I know. But something else that's interesting on the seller side is something we're testing now with the tech team, and goes into the conversion rate question as well. You know, the way that people follow up makes a huge difference on conversion rates. You know, one of the things that we're looking at now is we see a lot of people that treat seller follow up very different from how they treat a buyer follow up. You know, maybe they run where the buyers may go into a pond, or, you know, into a pool of a bunch of different people calling to get them on the phone. A lot of the time, sellers are going to be routed to one person who just can't follow up as efficiently as maybe that pond model can, which, you know, that's the question that we're testing is, you know, does that make an impact on how these seller leads convert? So, I mean, the seller side is something that, you are right, Kayla. The buyer side has always been the focus of CINC, but seller is definitely something we're really going into this year. We've got several different tests running right now, different ad types that we're testing. Also, you know, and then on the back end, like, what is the follow-up? What are some improvements we can make on the follow-up side to that lead, or, you know, scripting, or what prescribed follow-up do we give to clients? You know, what do we see there? So it's a huge point of emphasis for us. But yeah, the
recognize it's so important right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the main request that we're getting. But yeah, Dan's right. A portion of the buyer leads will have a house to sell, and, you know, if you do need to generate more listings, the seller advertising is a good avenue to do that.
Awesome. I see a question from Mary Jo asking, can we remarket to seller leads? And I think the answer there is, as long as you give us maybe a list of your seller leads, you maybe export them from your CINC platform, you absolutely could use that as a custom audience, right?
You could do, yeah, you could do a couple things. You could pull, and we have done this, pull an export from the CINC CRM of everybody that's tagged as a seller, upload those to Facebook, Instagram, Google. You can also use that as a seed audience to create what's called a lookalike audience. So people that look like that person on those networks, which can help to increase the audience size. Or if the audience is big enough, you can show just to that export. Another way that you can do remarketing is based off of audiences created via pixel, or whatever Google calls it. On Facebook, it's called a pixel. So, you know, we place pixels on all the CINC client sites, which goes ahead and starts collecting that data. And then if you think about the seller suites, or the seller landing pages, all of them have a commonality in terms of the URL that says that this is a seller landing page. So you could create audiences off of everyone who has visited a URL on your website with this particular piece in it, which should be sellers that have been on the site. So yes, we can remarket to sellers. The big concern there is the audience large enough for it to spend effectively? That's always the concern on the remarketing side.
Good note. All right, we're going to get into some final thoughts here, and I think this is a great time to loop in those remaining questions of asking, how our leads might differ from other sources. Mike, I think you specifically mentioned like KV Core and Realtor.com. So I'll kind of set this up to say it's hard to know specifically how ours differ because we're not in their platforms, knowing how their ads specifically work, but we can speak to our, again, not specifics of anything proprietary, but we can talk about the advancements that we've made and what we, think really sets us apart. So can you kind of tell us why we know that the CINC lead might be a superior lead?
Hey, Dan, you can start, but I have a quick question for Mary Jo. If you could answer that in the chat while we're answering this. On the KV Core platform, what are those ads that are being run? My understanding is that it's primarily listing ads. Is that correct? Or is it going to be ads for most of our ads are around ideas. So, VA eligible homes in an area, that kind of stuff. So if you get a chance, Mary Jo, if you're still around, if you can drop that in the chat, that would help me to answer your question after Dan talks.
But I would say, I don't know about KB Core, but with Realtor.com, and I guess they're sort of like with the Zillow leads of old. I'm not sure. So they might have a higher quality in terms of like they might be closer towards making a purchase, but they cost like a lot more. So like you have to look at the quality, you have to evaluate the quality of the lead versus the price of the lead. And ours are high quality lead. They might not be as great as the other ones, but the cost is a tenth or a fifth of what a Realtor.com is doing. Then it makes sense on that side.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, at least with the Zillow model, and I believe Realtor does it this way. It's two different strategies, right? So on the Zillow side, on the Realtor side, they're never forced to register. They register when they're ready to submit a request, right? So it's going to be more expensive, but they're going to be further down the pipeline. On the CINC side, we're trying to get you in front of these people before they even go to those other platforms. So the lead cost is going to be lower, but there's going to be more people who are farther out or just won't come to fruition. So we have a lot of clients that have been with us for several years that I've talked to about how they're gradually reducing their spend on those other portals that they used to rely on so much, like Zillow, like Realtor, because they don't like a lot of the things that they're doing. You look at a Zillow, like to me, they're trying to cut out an agent, and that's not what we stand for, at all. Again, we make money when you guys make money. So we're always investing in empowering the agent. So that's a part of why some of our clients that I've spoken to are pulling away from those services. But another reason is the database that they have in CINC is so robust and has been, they've been running these ads for so long that they're getting more ROI from the longer term leads that we're generating than they are from those shorter term leads where you're competing with multiple agents. This is your database. This is an asset that you own on the CINC side. So it's just two different strategies, two different viewpoints. Obviously, I'm partial to the CINC one, but I'm biased. But I think the goal is you can. I think you can, generate that database, and then that's your database, and then you'll see a better ROI from that eventually once that database is able to kind of incubate and be nurtured.
But you can put them all your leads into your CINC database and see if the Realtor.com are better than the CINC leads, and after you factor in the cost of it and everything, then go with the Realtor.com leads. But I don't think you will, especially since we have a lot of these like our AI and some of our other tools, and that improve the quality of the leads of our the CINC leads, as well as the other leads, but just in general, it improves things.
One thing I've seen agents talking about in our Facebook groups recently is, ROI. So actually adding up how much you spent on the platform, how much you invested in ad spend, and looking at the ROI. And I see that a lot of people are having like 6, 8, 10. One solo agent, which just blew my mind, was at 14 times ROI. And we've already kind of talked about how it's difficult to track true conversion rate on our side. Markets vary so wildly. Your work process, are going to vary so wildly. That's something that you kind of need to track. And then take that number back to your account manager and your ad manager and say, this is where I am now, but here's my goal. How can you help me get there? And those are the kind of conversations we love to have, because then we get to think strategy. And I think, Harry said earlier that we like to problem solve. And so if you can show us where you are now and tell us how you want, where you want to be, let us figure out how to help you get there. And so you're only going to know that if you track your ROI, how many people are closing, and know your own numbers, because that's how you can make a really educated decision and not just I feel like I should do this. We have to make educated decisions based on data, and that's going to be what really helps take you to the next level. And one thing I've kind of started to talk to people about is it's really easy to say, I'm just going to use easy numbers because I'm not good at math, but I got 100 leads this year. And 6 of them closed. Well, of those 100 leads next year, you might have 10 more of those that closed that next year because they're now a little bit further along in the pipeline. So it's really cool to do track the same numbers year after year. So in sets of leads year after year, so you can see, just because they didn't close this year, it doesn't mean that I'm not getting a return on those next year. And that's something that I think a lot of people just haven't really considered doing, but I think that makes a big difference in seeing what lead sources are really working for you, but what their time frame might be like. So that can be really overwhelming to start a kind of tracking process like that, but I think it's really worthwhile.
And I want to mention while we're on our final thoughts here, I have to bring this up in every webinar, but generally our clients their actual ad spend is a small percent of their actual investment in CINC, because the platform is not expensive, but it's premium. It's a premium platform, so the ad spend is a small percent. So just making a small increase in your overall investment by focusing on ad spend will really help your lead flow. Like if you're only spending $200 on advertising, if you double that to 400, you're going to get twice as many leads. And ideally, if you double your number of leads, you'll double your number of sales, and that might be only like a 15% increase of your total investment, depending on what platform you're on. So, but yeah, just going back to what Kayla said in terms of like focus on your ROI, and I really think you can improve your ROI by, in most cases, by investing a little bit more in your advertising, especially now because the cost per lead is so low. It's maybe at other times I would not be as bullish on it, but it's so low that it's just a really good time to increase your spend just a little bit.
It can feel counterintuitive to say spend a little bit more money to make more money, but it really is, the more leads you get, the more at-bats you have. And so the more opportunity you have. And so increasing by just a little bit, especially now when the cost is so low, it can really do a lot for especially that end of year ROI for sure.
And the reason we say it is it's like the whole thing, like what Ari was saying, like when you make money, we make money. It's not like directly, it's not like we have a commission or something, but if you sell more houses, you're going to keep with CINC because you're going to understand the value of CINC. And that's where we make money, is by you being a satisfied customer, a satisfied client for, forever. And you can do that by, increasing your advertising spend in many cases.
Awesome. Well, Mike, final call for any questions we haven't gotten to, or have we gotten caught up?
Looks the last question that came through is, how long does it typically take to ramp up with remarketing? Is there a ramp up period? And then are there long-term contracts for that, or is it month to month?
Really depends on it depends on your ad spend or what you have driving traffic to the site in terms of how long it takes to ramp up, because we just need to have people in the audience to show the ads to. And on so I mean, usually it's pretty quick. I mean, we don't usually launch people with remarketing. We do on the listcast side with that type of remarketing, and it usually performs pretty well in the first month and improves over time as more people are added to the audience and the recommendations get better and better. And then most people started in the branded remarketing usually have at least a few months in the platform. So we place those pixels on the site when it launches to go ahead and start building that audience so it is ready to go when you are. On the Facebook side, they can stay in for up to 180 days. On the Google side, I believe it's 540. It's a really long time on the Google side. So, I mean, we're building that audience from day one. So if you do choose to turn it on, it's ready to rock and roll. And then on the contract side, it is month to month, as far as I know, unless I'm misthinking. We do sometimes offer promotions and things like that may span a couple of months, but there's no kind of contract with it or anything. You would be able to cancel it at the end of a month and not have to continue with it should you want to.
Yeah, if you want to do the sphere of influence with an uploaded list, you can start immediately, like right when you launch. But if you don't want to do that, you should wait a few months, just because there's not enough people in your cookie pool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good point. The list is going to be different from the traditional. That's a good point.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we are all caught up on questions then, which means we have come to the end of our time together. I know we went a little over an hour, so thank you to everyone who stuck around to finish out the Q&A with us, and a big thanks to Mike for being a great moderator today. And of course, a big thanks to Dan and Harry for joining us and sharing their expertise. Just a reminder that we did record this, so it will go up on cincommunity.com/webinars in a recording gallery, and it'll be emailed out to everyone at the end of the week. If you do have questions that come after we wrap up today, you can call CINC support. That's 855-246-2717, or of course you can email support@cincpro.com. If you are a site owner with us, of course, you can also reach out to your account manager and they can set you up with some time to speak to your ad manager that work with Dan and Harry, so they can give you some really targeted things to optimize and maximize the ad spend that you currently have with us. So again, a big thank you. I appreciate everyone's time. I hope you have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week. Please join us for our other webinars. We have another one tomorrow on communication automations. We're going to be talking specifically about AutoTrack's behavioral messaging. And then of course we have lots of other things happening all throughout the month. So anything you need help with, we are here to help you to make sure you're as successful as possible. And we truly mean that. I truly mean it. I want to help you be successful. So any questions you've got, please reach out and let us be a help. And I hope that we see you on another webinar really soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.